Hello YouTube, it's Andy again, and got another design support library tutorial for you today. And today is going to be on the tab layout. Let me show you what this is going to show you how to do. So on the right here we have the tab layout that scrolls across towards the middle of the screen, where you can put a picture back here and scroll up, and it all becomes part of the toolbar. And then when you click on each one of these, you get a new view. Okay, so it's pretty simple to set up this tab layout, and it actually is part of the toolbar in this demo. That's why it's all looks like it's one solid layer, and that's because the system actually has them on the same elevation. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's first jump into the XML file. So the way that I get the whole scrolling with the coordinator layout, I'm actually going to show that in the next video. I'll talk about that later, but we're going to put this all in a coordinator layout, Android support design widget. Then inside of an app bar layout, we will have our collapsing toolbar layout, which is up here, which has the toolbar and the image view. And then right underneath that, inside the app bar layout, we will have our tab layout, which is this view right here. Now, if you do not add this little app tab mode scrollable, you'll have fixed width tabs, and it'll wrap the text onto the second line, but not necessarily where you think it will wrap the text. So if you have some labels that will have a long name, like this coordinator layout and floating labels here, you're going to want to set it to scrollable. This way it'll look right, because it's just going to wrap the text wherever you run out of characters, depending on the device. That's not even the same amount. So just leave that as scrollable for you. If you don't know how many tabs you're going to have, or if you know your titles are going to be pretty lengthy. Okay, so inside we have, let's see, our collapsing toolbar layout. We need to specify for this, we want the the toolbar to stay when we scroll up. So in here we have the collapsed mode pin, and then for the image, the way that it kind of moves and shifts up at a different rate, that's the parallax feature. So this is going to have the collapsed mode parallax. All right. Also importantly, to have this as a wrap content. You probably don't really even need this gravity bottom, but if you're having problems with maybe your tab layout is actually showing up at the top below something, or above something that you don't want it to be, if you set this gravity bottom, it'll always be fixed to the bottom of this app bar layout. So you can add it. You probably don't need it though. And underneath that, we're going to have a view pager. And much like other tabs layouts, you're going to have a view pager that you're communicating with, and using a Fragment pager adapter to initiate the changes with the swipes, so that when you swipe, the new tab and the new fragment are matching. Okay, so let's get this. Let's jump into the Java code. There's not a whole lot to set up, but you do need to initialize the view pager before we do the tab layout, before we actually set up the tab layout with the view pager. Obviously, you can initialize all the actual views beforehand, but before we actually set up the tab layout, we need to actually set up the view pager first. So I just did it in that order to make it easier. So we have our view pager, and we're setting it up, and then I'm calling a method to set up the view pager, which is here. But really, before we can set up the view pager, we need to set up the view pager adapter, which in this case is actually a fragment pager adapter here. So here's a class that's really easy to follow. It's not a whole lot into it. We're just overriding 3 methods and adding a 4th method, as well as an initializer statement so that we can initialize our view pager adapter by just passing in the fragment manager. Now, the 2 things that we are going to have is a list of fragments and a list of strings. Now, the list of fragments are going to be the 4 fragments that our example here is going to use. Sorry. So that's the floating labels, the fab, the snack bar, and the coordinator layout are going to be our 4 fragments. And those 4 fragments are going to need a title to go with it. So that's what our strings are. The strings are going to be the titles. So that when we add a fragment, we're going to also add a title at the same time. So when we create a fragment pager adapter, we need to tell it as a mandatory. We need to tell it how many items it's gonna have, and so that's actually get counts as how many pages to create on the pager adapter, and then it's also gonna need to know which item to be on, and that's actually the get item. As well as it also needs to know which title to go with. So that's this get page title, which is a char sequence, or which is very similar to a string. So right here, let's start with get item. So for every single, when the fragment pager adapter now is at position 1, it's passing in, okay, we are at position 1. What am I going to be displaying there? So then it's going to look at this fragment list here, and then says, okay, well, what is in that list at position 1? And then it's going to say, oh, okay, that's going to be the fab, and then it's going to set that as the view. And it's going to do that for all 4 items, so that whenever it changes, it's going to put in the correct fragment to be visible. And so the way that it also knows how many are, it's like, okay, so when we create our adapter, we're going to actually specify how many items we're going to put into this list. When we initialize the or when we hook up the adapter to the view pager. So the amount of pages are going to be however many fragments there are. We could have simply made it the same as this fragment title list as here. It makes absolutely no difference because both of them are going to have 4 items. So, this would theoretically allow you to have a fragment without a title, where you probably wouldn't want to do it the other way around, or have a title with no fragment. But either way, it doesn't really matter. Both will work in this position here. And then last, it's the fragment pager adapter is actually going to tell the view pager, okay, what position am I at? Okay, I'm at now 2. I need to get what the title to put in there. Just like I had to figure out what fragment to put there, it needs to know what title to put there. So this is basically the same thing as get item, but instead of grabbing a fragment, you're grabbing a string. So that's what these 2 methods here are pretty much the same methods. The only difference is what you're returning. So you're returning a fragment, and then here you're returning a char sequence, which is very similar to a string. Android can convert a string or a char sequence interchangeably. It doesn't really make any difference. And then the last method that we're creating is add frag, and it takes 2 inputs. It's taking a fragment and it's taking a string, and I've kind of labeled these easily so we know what we're doing. So every single time we add a fragment to the pager adapter, we're also adding the string, the title that goes with it at the same time. So here's our list for the fragment, and then here's our list for the titles, and we're adding in it. And it's going to take whatever the next position is. So when we're adding the first one, it's going to put each one of these in position 0, and then consecutively up until however many fragments we add to the view pager adapter, or fragment pager adapter, sorry. Okay, so that's it with the fragment pager adapter. It's actually very easy to set up once you know how it works. So then we're going to put it in here in our setup view pager. We're going to input the view pager that we initialized right before it, right here. So we've initialized it, and then now we're going to plug in our view pager. So we set up and initialize our adapter, and we're passing in our fragment manager. And in this case, it's the support fragment manager. You want to make sure that you select this one. If you're having any errors where you have the wrong fragment or something, make sure you have both the support fragments and the support fragment manager. This will ensure backwards compatibility. Okay. And then we have our 4 views that we're going to be adding to it. So we have our floating labels fragment, our fab layout fragment, our snack bar fragment, and our coordinator layout fragment are all going to go, and we're adding the titles exactly as they appear here. And then we need to tell our view pager to set the adapter to this view pager adapter, which is a fragment pager adapter. All right. So next we need to initialize our tab layout, and then tell the tab layout, okay, we need to let's set it up with the view pager so it knows what's going to be underneath it, and just plug in our view pager that's already been set up with the view pager adapter. So that's all set to go. We're pretty much set. Now the only thing that we would want to add here is a set on tab selected listener. So that's so that when, let's say I select here floating labels, that it changes to floating labels. So here on tab selected, we want the view pager to actually change to the correct tab. So the input is going to be the tab, and what we're going to do is we're going to say call view pager, and we're going to say set current item, but we need that takes in a position. So we're going to pass in the tab that we're selected and get the position. So in this case, it'll be 0 when we selected floating label. You don't really need to do any of these two. You don't need to add anything to them. Just leave them blank because we're not really doing anything inside of our view pagers here. I mean inside of our fragments here. But if you had any kind of network call or something like that, something you might want to cache or something like that, or do some kind of animation when you when you like lay off of something, or I don't know. You can use your imagination. Like these are basically exactly what you would think. This method is called when you unselect something. So right now fab is selected, and then when I change to floating labels, this tab unselected is called on the tab before it changes, and on a tab reselected is if you're going back to it. So maybe you would want to reload some cache data so that the user wouldn't have any kind of delay, or so you wouldn't have to reload information from an internet source or something like that. But we're not doing any of that in this example, so it's not really necessary. But that's why they're there, and that's why you have to have them. When you set up the tab layout on tab selected listener, these will be automatically populated for you, or it'll tell you to add those two methods as well as the on tab selected. Okay, so that's it for tab layout. It's actually very easy. I will be uploading this code is already uploaded on GitHub, so I'll put the link to that. All my future from this video on examples will be on GitHub. My Dropbox space is empty, so I don't really have any more room for uploading my zip files to there. Plus, this allows me to really update it easily if there's something new or something like that. Um, I've enabled the version control settings on here, so I'll be up. This is already uploaded. I'll just put in the link for the GitHub in the box below. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.